Hi everyone, and welcome to this video. Reports of my death are greatly exaggerated. This is a quotation from this gentleman here. That's Mr. Mark Twain in 1897 when he read his own obituary in the New York Journal. In actual fact, it was his cousin who was seriously ill at the time and there was a bit of a mix-up. And when I looked at that recently, it really seemed to reflect in my own life what was happening in the world of intranet and SharePoint. So let's kick off with a few facts. Telstra, as most of you know, is the leading telecommunications provider in Australia, and we have about 36,000 odd full-time staff. And when you beef that up with about another 5,000 or 6,000 or so contractors and consultants, that's pretty much an intranet audience of well over 40,000 people. In terms of my own path through the organisation, I joined in 1995 as webmaster of telstra.com.au, that's prior to telstra.com even. And my progress through that time has sort of evolved into knowledge manager and collaboration manager, which is pretty much what it is today. And somehow in those roles I've always managed to have one foot in the business and another in IT, and got a pretty good view of those two worlds and how they interacted. So in 16 years, and what I consider to be 16 fairly short years, my career and the world as a whole really has just made this enormous leap from just the introduction of the internet and just doing a little bit of HTML from my personal perspective, through to now all of us living in a world where we transact a lot of our business and certainly a lot of our relationships online as well. And I read recently that 9 million Australians now have done some form of shopping on the internet. That's getting close to half the Australian population. So that's a pretty extraordinary journey in that period of time. So why this particular topic? Well, first and foremost, a project called Our Knowledge, which I've been working on for the last year or so. And one of the most frequently asked questions of all the frequently asked questions I received on this project was, how does this project, which is the SharePoint project, how does this project fit in with the intranet? Where's the connection? How does it all kind of roll together? And then there was this particular quotation I spotted on one of the discussion threads in a LinkedIn group that I belong to. There's a lot of discussions on that thread about intranet, but it was the language of this particular post that I thought was interesting. We're suddenly faced with rethinking what an intranet is and should be. Also, these particular discussion threads that also came up in LinkedIn discussions, and some of the language that's being used in those threads. The end of intranets, ruin or reinvent the traditional intranet, the death of the intranet. This is very strong language. And what it really said to me was that some very searching questions are now being asked about what the intranet is in 2011. Where are we going in this presentation? First of all, I want to take a little walk down memory lane, because it's always interesting to have a look at the past in order to help us understand the changes in our expectations of what intranets provide, or should provide. Then I want to have a closer look at Our Knowledge project and how it raised questions about what the intranet really is. I want to look at a new intranet model based on 3 fundamental types of knowledge. And then at the end, a little bit of crystal ball gazing, a bit of a personal vision about where this journey might be taking us. 1994. Welcome everybody to a new workplace concept called the browser. This is a screenshot of Telstra's very first intranet homepage. Very glamorous with its different shades of grey and standard hyperlinks. You'll notice there's one of the options on the left-hand side there in the middle of the Internet index. You just click on the index of the Internet and it's all there. So this is how the intranet was in 1994. This is only 16, 17 years ago. I remember we all actually went out and celebrated when Netscape added tables to HTML so we could actually do a little bit of decent layout on a page. This particular page predated that even, it was very early. Then in the early 2000s, we got very excited about databases. We wanted to put some smarts behind these static web pages. It was all about content management, all about a top-down intranet solution, design and build. Our experts designed a technical solution. IT set up a platform. We programmed a very big database. You can see how big it is, judging from that fellow down the bottom there, circled in red, and looking up at he and his team's handiwork. We built a very big infrastructure, overlaid a look and feel, made sure it had enough power to drive the whole organisation. And at the end of this exercise, we launched a big, beautifully engineered intranet. The ultimate intranet experience, everything in one grand place. And then in the late 2000s, things started to change quite dramatically. We went from better content management to connecting and sharing. We went from capturing knowledge to liberating knowledge. We went from access to information to access to better tools to interact with that information. So why was all this happening? Well, we met SharePoint and Facebook and LinkedIn and YouTube and Yammer and blogging. You get the general picture of what was going on out there. And then suddenly there's pressure on from inside, changes coming, or pressure for changes coming from everywhere. We start getting this kind of cry from inside the firewall. People expecting, a Google search, Facebook updates and likes and instant broadcasting, all those sorts of things. They expect it internally as well as their experience out on the internet. So in a nutshell, our expectations of intranets have grown exponentially. So if you look at that in a graphical view, look back at 1995, the wonderful halcyon, simple days of 1995, where just getting some content up there and getting people to use a browser was the achievement. That's what we expected to do. In the 2000s, yes, we went further. It was all about databases and publishing content online. We did some pretty fancy stuff with web interfaces to back-end systems, online training, those sorts of things. They really flourished. They've done well. And it was really all about pushing the right information to the right people at the right time. That was the catch cry. Today, though, the list, as you can imagine, is much, much bigger. In fact, even down the bottom of that list, I've got etc., etc., etc. That list could probably be twice as long as it is there. A couple of points I want to highlight in that list. It's not just about pushing the right information to the right people at the right time. It's about exchanging and sharing the right information with the right people at the right time. And not just information, but exchanging ideas and knowledge with those people. So the graph looks something like this, and I think I've been fairly conservative in that graph as well. I think I really could have made that last section of the graph much, much steeper than it is. The reality is that our working lives are no longer augmented with online tools. Our working lives are lived with online tools, and our expectations of the intranet have risen accordingly. So let's talk a little about SharePoint in Telstra. It's been an understandably cautious approach. In 2009, we rolled out SharePoint 2007 as a separate add-on system branded EDMS. This is primarily for document storage and was replacing an end-of-life document management system. We did open up some collaboration features and tools, lists and wikis and things like that, let people give them a bit of a go. Workflows were allowed, out of the box only though. But most importantly, in all this activity, it was not the new intranet. Why not? Well, there are plenty of good reasons. Magnitude of effort is the biggest one. Migration of an intranet with 50-odd thousand pages and let's say hundreds, maybe thousands of existing sites. This is no small undertaking and quite a large price tag attached to it. On the other side of the coin, SharePoint is still developing as a product, and there was some caution at the time in committing too early and too deeply to a product that hadn't quite reached full maturity yet. On the people side, we certainly weren't ready to throw out a very good federated governance model, a lot of really rich help resources for the existing system. There was a high level of knowledge and comfort by people using the current intranet tool. And basically starting again from the ground up, there wasn't really great appetite for it. So in 2009, this was the layout. We had the intranet, content management tool, which was non-SharePoint. We had the EDMS rollout of SharePoint, SharePoint 2007, and the link between them was via document management. And it's a very hard boundary that sits between those two environments, both on different platforms, both requiring different kinds of support and training, and a governance structure that sat a little uncomfortably across both. Quite a common scenario, though, I might add, for a lot of large organisations who likewise had a fairly cautious approach to introducing SharePoint.